MacRae.
Can you stand again here? You're all right. Right, thank you, Madam Mayor. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, fellow councillors and Madam Mayor. Sorry. The intimidation and abuse of councillors in person, otherwise, undermines democracy, preventing elected members from representing the communities they serve, deterring individuals from standing for election, and underpinning public life in democratic processes. You have the rest of the motion before you this evening. I have brought this to council this evening as for far too long this unacceptable behaviour has been carrying on. Sadly, not only members of the public but also elected members who have been acting in a way unbecoming of anyone in public office. How can we as councillors ask for the public to stop with the intimidation and abuse of councillors if we are not prepared to do this ourselves? When people are going out of their way, visiting organisations, sending emails to organisations and doing all they can to belittle and tarnish the reputation of others, it's no wonder people don't want to stand to become councillors, or even very good councillors standing down as they have never seen such childish behaviour in all their professional careers. Now, I'm not going to give them the publicity they enjoy so much by saying any names, plus the monitoring officer would probably tell me off. But for far too long, a certain individual and his social media page of hatred has been allowed to post untruths about fellow councillors. I know at least 6 councillors who all work very hard for the residents they represent, who are a constant target of this individual person. What makes it worse, he is often seen in the company of other councillors before posting his hatred online, tagging personal accounts and work-related accounts of other councillors. This kind of behaviour must not be allowed to carry on. So I'm asking that this evening we all take a moment to reflect on the words of this motion and give the support, as more needs to be done. More action from the police and more action from the council to protect not only our councillors but also our hard-working officers who often receive abuse online. There are 44 Broxtowe Borough councillors, and that is a lot of experience, a lot of skill and a lot of knowledge to get the job done. In the words of Ralph Waldo Emerson, my mum sent me this quote randomly the other day, but it's quite fitting. There is no limit to what can be accomplished if it doesn't matter who gets the credit. Thank you.
Thank you. So are you proposing this?
I'm proposing that.
Okay, do I have a seconder?
I'd like to second that, Madam Mayor, please, and reserve my right to speak. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anybody, would Councillor deal with it?
So, Madam Mayor, I rise to formally request that this matter be referred to the Governance Audit and Standards Committee to consider in much more detail, to enable the committee to work with officers to develop a policy on the council's approach to abuse against councillors and indeed officers, and to explore the range of action that could be used to appropriately address the reported behaviour, including extreme cases, the consideration of injunctive orders. And the reason for this, Madam Mayor, is there are 2 areas of concern within that LGA's model motion. One is the legal framework that's required to differentiate between or even describe what is called a zero tolerance approach. So, Madam Mayor, I wish that the council, when considering it in the Gas Committee, will come back by all members with an agreement to put in an agreed policy for dealing with what we consider to be tolerant policies. And also, Madam Mayor, the second reason for asking that this motion be referred to the committee, I call on the mover and seconder to agree to this, and members of the opposition, is that there are cases and extreme cases for injunctions to be served against individuals, groups or organisations that threaten, bully or intimidate to a point when they are driving down the democratic process. Now, I was speaking to people today about this, about the use of injunctions and injunctive orders. Very rarely used. And until I pointed out that yes, this council has served injunctions before, I had it myself. I had a woman in Beeston who harassed me for whatever reason. I don't think I'm that particularly attractive, but she seemed to think so. But it did affect my family life, it did affect me, and it caused me a great deal of concern. But also, Madam Mayor, you've heard me speak before in this council, when myself and Councillor Ellen Lodziak in the year 2001 were campaigning across South Street in Eastwood with the escort provided by Special Branch who were armed because of death threats we'd received from the extreme right. And also, Madam Mayor, I've also referenced in the past before when in 1987, go back that far back, we actually had letters of congratulations that were signed with razor blades. They put razor blades under the slit, so the idea is when you slit your letter out with your small finger, you cut your finger off. So we have letters with razor blades in them. We've had death threats that was taken extremely seriously. This is not an issue that is going away. It needs further consideration. It needs the council to draw up a connected policy to deal with all levels, including the use of injunctions. That is something I will not shy away from, whether it's a member of the Conservative group, the Independents or the Labour group. If that person feels intimidated that he can no longer represent their constituents in a democracy, democracy is dead. We will not allow it to die, Madam Mayor. So I formally request, and I'll move tonight, that this be referred to Governance and Order Standards for the reasons I've outlined tonight, to give it further consideration and to pursue potentially the use of injunctive orders against offenders who do cross that line.
Thank you, Leader. So, Councillor MacRae and Councillor Williamson, are you prepared to accept that?
Yeah, we spoke to the leader and we spoke to the young lady at the side of you there earlier, and it makes sense because we want to do it properly, we want to get it right, and at the end of the day, we want everyone to just be councillors that want to be councillors, and you know, some of the people are going to get involved, and we want them to. We want them to know that they can be protected and looked after, and all that nonsense just needs to stop. So yeah,
Okay.
yes, I do support that.
Okay, that's that one, is it? So that's motions withdrawn to be referred elsewhere. So. But is there a vote required on that? Sorry, there's a vote required on that. Councillor Owen's got his hand up.
So you can have carry on with the debate.
We can carry on with the debate then. So Councillor Jill Owen had her hand up first. Okay, Councillor Philip Owen. And then Councillor Hanlon.
I have grave concerns about the tone of what has been said, because the inference and the implication is that we're under siege from people who want to do us harm. And that is not true. That is not true. I have not ever come across that. I have never come across that. Yes, in a political life, in a political world, you get some, shall we say, unpleasant comments made at you. But that's the nature of the political world that we're in. For example, when I was out delivering leaflets for the last election, somebody came stomping across the road holding my leaflet, and you know what sort of attitude they're going to have. And he called me a slimy little toad. He did. I know it's hard to believe that I'm not universally adored, but he called me a slimy little toad. But he wouldn't tell me why I was a slimy little toad, but he told me where to shove my leaflet. Okay? You get that. But I didn't feel intimidated by it. I didn't feel particularly upset about it. The general election 2019, when I was up in Strelly Village and delivering leaflets for Darren Henry, I was told that I would be dead by the time the general election came round. Well, you can see reports of my demise are greatly exaggerated because I spited him. And you get these things from time to time, but to suggest that there is a constant attack, there have been isolated cases, I'm sure. I don't dispute that. We've had some terrible incidents. But I would have thought we've got enough mechanisms in place without trying to go any further. We've got a code of conduct, which we all sign up to. That covers a lot of it. If you want to take out an injunction against somebody, well then take out an injunction against somebody. But I think it was Harry S. Truman that said, if you can't stand the heat, get out of the kitchen. And I'm sorry, but political life is a bit rough and tumble. And yes, I know there is somebody up in the north of the borough. I think it's called, he runs a website or sends out emails under the term exposing dishonesty. He sends me emails from time to time. Well, they make a good read, but you just ignore them. So I have grave concerns that we're blowing this up out of all proportion when many of us, and some of us have been around an awful long time, have not experienced this at all. And it really is, I think, just a very, very small minority. And perhaps they ought to reflect on why they are singled out. I don't know.
I'm delighted for you, Councillor Owen, that you've never experienced that. That's a very lucky position to be in. I'm delighted for you. What the leader has proposed is that we refer this motion. So that's what we're debating at the moment, whether we're going to refer the motion to governance, orders and standards. That's what we're debating at the moment.
And I'll second that, Chair.
Yeah, okay. Councillor Land.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The Liberal Democrat group in the wider Nottinghamshire area have taken action to block the page that Councillor Ray mentions and the individual to ensure that we can't be tagged in such disparaging comments. I can attest that it can be quite damaging actually to the representation of individuals and organisations. I'm relieved to hear Councillor Owen has stood steady against the minor barrages of attacks that he's faced, and I admire his resilience. But nonetheless, I think this is something that does need to be taken seriously by the council, especially with younger members of the chamber who may not have the resilience that Councillor Owen has built up over his years of service to the community. Thank you.
Does anybody else want to speak on the amended motion to refer this motion to governance, audit and standards, or can we just take that to a vote? You'll take it to a vote then?
It's just the original motion.
Oh, the original.
It was accepted by the proposer. And,
okay.
So, but yes, it's just a vote if no one else has. So.
Do you feel the need to speak again, Richard, or can we just take it to a vote?
I'll stand up to say I don't feel the need to speak, but you know, you've only got to look at what happened to Joe Cox and other people to make this more real. Yeah. And I'm glad you haven't received it yourself. It's not nice when it does happen.
Okay, take it to a vote then. All in favour? Against? Abstentions? Carried.